Welcome back to a new episode of Between Thoughts, the podcast where we take ordinary thoughts, pull them apart, and see what they reveal about life. Today's episode begins with a warning that has been over 2000 years old, and yet somehow it's more relevant today than ever. It's the story of a boy who flew too close to the sun. Imagine this, you've finally made it. The followers are growing, the money is coming in, people know your name, your hard work is finally paying off, and then you lose everything. Not because you weren't talented, not because someone sabotaged you, not because you got lucky. You lose it because success convinced you that the rules no longer apply to you. And that's exactly what happened to Icarus. And here's the twist, the story isn't really about flying too high, it's about forgetting why you started flying in the first place. For those who are unfamiliar with the myth, in Greek mythology, Icarus and his father, Daedalus, were trapped on an island. Daedalus was a brilliant inventor. To escape, he built two sets of wings made from, I guess, feathers and wax. I think those are the two things. Before they left, Daedalus gave his son a warning. He said, "Son, don't fly too low. The sea would wet the wings." And he also said, "Son, don't fly too high. The sun would melt the wax." So he just asked him to stay in the middle. He asked him to stay balanced, stay aware. At first, Icarus listened. Then something happened. He felt the wind, he felt freedom, he felt powerful, and like many of us, when things start going well, he wanted more. Higher, closer, brighter, until the wax melted. The wings fell apart, and Icarus fell into the sea. The end. Or at least that's how most people tell the story. Most people think the lesson is don't be ambitious. But that's not it. If the lesson was don't fly, Daedalus wouldn't have built the wings. The lesson isn't that ambition is dangerous. The lesson is that success changes people. Success creates a new problem. When things are going badly, we are cautious. When things are going well, we are confident. Sometimes too confident. And that's where Icarus Paradox begins. The very thing that creates success eventually becomes the reason for failure. Think about it. How many people have ruined their lives immediately after reaching the top? And how many athletes lose discipline after winning? How many artists stop experimenting after their first hit? How many businesses collapse because they became too comfortable? The climb and the fall often comes from the same source. Let's take Mike Tyson. Tyson became heavyweight champion at just 20 years old. A feat, a level of success most people couldn't even imagine. The hunger that got him there was extraordinary. The discipline, the training, the obsession, and eventually success arrived. And once it arrived, so did distraction. Money, fame, people telling him he was invincible. Tyson himself spoke, saying that success changed his mindset. The very confidence that made him terrifying in the ring eventually became arrogance outside it. His story isn't simply about boxing, it's about what happens when achievement convinces us that we are untouchable. I think many of us imagine failure as the biggest threat to our dreams, but maybe success is more dangerous. Failure keeps us humble, failure forces us to learn, failure reminds us that we don't know everything. And success whispers a dangerous message. It says, you figured it out, you are special, the rules don't apply to you anymore, and that's usually when mistake starts to begin. The philosopher Carl Jung once suggested that what we don't acknowledge about ourselves eventually controls us. Success often creates a shadow, the shadow of ego, the shadow of pride, the shadow of believing our own story. The more people praise us, the harder it becomes to hear criticism. And the more successful we become, the less likely people are to tell us the truth. And eventually, we become surrounded by applause and not honesty. Think about the Beatles. Before they became legends, they played endless shows in tiny venues, night after night. They refined their craft through repetition. Those difficult years built the very foundation. But after becoming the biggest band in the world, the pressure changed. Success introduced new challenges, creative differences, expectations, egos, Yuko as well. The thing they had worked towards forever became something that they had to survive. Success solved one problem and created another. The myth feels especially relevant now because modern life encourages us to fly closer to the sun every day. More followers, more money, more views, more productivity, and we need to hustle more. Nobody tells us where enough is because nobody defines enough. We keep climbing, not because we need to, because we can. Here's something I've been thinking about. What if the goal isn't to reach the sun? What if the goal is to keep flying? Think about that. The sun is a destination, flying is a process. The destination lasts the moment, the process can last a lifetime. Maybe the happiest people aren't the ones who reach the highest point. Maybe they are the ones who learn how to stay airborne. Look at Tom Brady. 7 championships, more success than almost anyone in his sport. But what separated him wasn't talent alone, it was consistency. The willingness to keep doing boring things long after success arrived. That's rare. Most people change once they win. Brady's greatness came from continuing the habits that made winning possible in the first place. He didn't forget the wings. What's fascinating is that Daedalus warned Icarus against the two extremes of flying. Not just flying too high, but also flying too low. And that's important because some people fear success so much that they never take risk. Others become obsessed with success and burn themselves out. The answer isn't fear, and it isn't recklessness as well. It's balance, the middle path, the ability to stay ambitious without becoming consumed by ambition. So, how do we avoid becoming Icarus? With this amount of time, I've just come up with 3 things, but you guys can leave a few of your thoughts in the comments below. And here are the 3 things that I came up with. Remember what got you here. That's number one. The habits that create success are usually boring, but don't abandon them once things start working. And the second one is stay close to honest people. Find people who tell you the truth, not what you want to hear, but what you need to hear. And the third one is define your version of enough. Because if you don't define enough, you'll spend your entire life chasing more. And the sun always looks a little higher from where you are standing. There's a painting called Landscape with the Fall of Icarus. What's interesting is that Icarus is barely even visible. Most people in the painting aren't even looking at him. They are farming, working, living their lives. The world keeps moving even after a dramatic fall. I think that's strangely comforting. We spend so much time worrying about failure, about embarrassment, about what happens if things go wrong. But the truth is, the world moves on, and so can we. Maybe the lesson of Icarus isn't that ambition is dangerous. Maybe it's that forgetting your limits is dangerous. Fly high, dream big, build something meaningful, but remember why you started. The goal was never the sun, the goal was always the flight. This was Between Thoughts. And until next time, keep thinking, keep dreaming, and catch you in the next episode.